Lost in Space was one of these classic pigs. Tree Rasta man would walk up and go, "What a Ras, Adam man? You just see how the blues earlier?" I'm like, "Yeah, where are the man? I'm painting." Idiot boy, man. I smoked too much of the blood clot skunk. For me, it was a bit between being this old man that kind of grew up on the side of these old pimps that were always wanted to be one of the boys, sheepskin coat, whatever else. And then I was pulled on the other side with this great book, Subway Art. And, you know, Subway Art for me, when I first saw it, was like looking at the Quran or the Bible. It was like it was that important to me. Everyone in that book I later on got to meet and become friends with. And it was really important to me to try and spread that. I've always kind of learned articulation through being attacked through the art, whether it was Pebble Mill at one, you know, there'd be TV programs in the Midlands where it was the police and a graffiti writer and the graffiti removal company, and is it art, is it vandalism? And they'd draw you out and drag you to the stage, and I'd have to have a one-on-one with a policeman about it, you know what I mean? I look at that now, it's like looking at a 70s roller disco, it's like, really? And you see so Neanderthal in its approach. If I had my choice, I'd have graffiti taught in schools, I'd have parkour in PE, in physical education, because our world, as we know street culture, has taken that parkour leap. It's taken the painting to a whole other level of how we look at art. How did that really come to be? I don't remember, well I can remember when I had one deck in a club. The guy would take a record off, and he'd pick up an ex-student and he'd play his record. Some of the older guys in here might remember that. It became two decks, it became stopping that music in time and being able to have repetitive loops. That was really the primal substance, I believe, of what this culture at the first thing, what Charlie Chase did in New York, and how, let's remember socially and take a little step back of why that happened in New York. Well, it was blue-collar workers that were there, that came from Cuba, Haiti, American people, American kids. So you had Afro-black, Jamaican black, Haiti black, all in one area, which was the Bronx. You had the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, which I see as really Manchester, Birmingham, Hackney. Do you know what I mean? That's how I see it. It was like a bit bigger in terms of its demographic. And the important thing about that, it was a melting pot of all these different cultures that were trying to lose their own culture because they felt cast out by it. So they joined graffiti crews. They felt part of something because they felt abandoned by the rest of the world. We're talking a time when the 70s and the 80s where your dad was cracked out and your mom was hooking. So you wanted to get out, you know, I mean, you go back and your mom's on PCP and you're like, what am I going to do? You'd be out on the road and you'd be out there with a crew that gave you love and you had something to do. You know, I always had this attitude towards graffiti, wanting to learn from these people, and Tasker in the Bronx was my thing, Bring Bio, Nicer, T-Kick. You know, that was my crew, and still is to this very day, 30 years deep, Tasker. And I'm thankful for that, and I'm always humble with that, because I look at Bio and the way that he would outline, and he learned me so much about the craft of art. Now, where we are now, with technology, the beautiful thing about technology, and the ugly thing about it, is that for me, it's tangible to a degree. But I still think graffiti, as Joseph Reichert said in 1972, at a massive art convention in front of all of these scholars, that his word on graffito, which was at that time tags on walls, he said, the barbarians from within will take over the world of art as we know it. Lo and behold, they have. And the importance of that is when you think about how we've accelerated the technology. As soon as society oppresses culture, this is what it does, it reacts to it. Big Brother, cameras, people get smart, Banksy gets smarter, you know, Stick gets smart. People start getting smart, they start pre-preparing poster art, you know, sticks, whatever else, to get their stuff on walls. Because it adapts and it goes through where it wants to get through. You walk down the street, and I look sometimes and I see a beautiful weed coming through the concrete. It got through that concrete, man. It's a weed, I can pick it up and snip it. But if you press something enough, it will come through. I've been pressing for 30 years with this stuff, because I love it, it's part of my DNA. But when I arrived within that DNA, I arrived on a train that already had lots of carriages before it. Writers that I wanted to know about. I wanted to know about the history of graffiti. I wanted to meet Henry, Lee Quignones, Goldie, you know, Kel. All these guys were like gods to me, and still are in a lot of respects. You know, I look at, you know, all of these writers, and I ask these, I was asking questions, you know, why did he do this? Why? Well, you know, these guys did this stuff. People got lung cancer, people getting shot in the yards. It's a lot easier now and manageable. And I always get a little bit kind of angry towards people that go, well, I could do that. Well, 30 years ago, could you do that? Do you know what I mean? Because you know so much now, the internet's here, you can do that. It's safe now to do that. What's not safe is become arrogant with what got us here and how we can pass that way of thinking on. Because as much as the computer has a certain amount of tendency, if I close it and I say to all of you got Macs, all of you got PCs, whatever else, close them. Tell me what you can do tomorrow. It's your life's in it. You're no different than somebody on the street, you've got nothing. I think if you've got poetry, written word, and you've got all these things, you've got art, you've got canvas, paintbrush, oils, whatever, we need art in this world, and I think it's something that's been so oppressed that if we're so smart with technology, we need to fight that fight for it. We can't just assume, okay, it's going to give me a t-shirt in Barney's and I'll buy it for $100. Right? We've arrived at that situation where the art, as soon as people realise the commerce in it, all of a sudden we start forgetting why we're involved in it. And it's very important to realise that very premise of art and how important it is to teach our kids about art in a way of free expression. And that's really important to me. I was given this book by Henry Chalfont, and I don't know how many of you have got this book. Does anyone have this book? Can I hug you? Because I don't know anyone who has this book. And Henry Chalfont gave it to me, and it's A Bronx Childhood. This book is the new Bible for me, because this book shows one kid, 10 years old, was part of a gang called the White Dukes, and he spent his time dealing with all of these crews, seeing the beginning of graffiti. I'm talking the one deck in the club, the bubble letter for the first time. Do you know how important that is to see these kids that create the bubble letter? You just make the letters big on a train. That very premise for me still turns me on. It still makes me think how far we've come in the evolution of graffiti. And also now, currently, when I look at people like Dame, I look at Roll, and all these kids coming up, they're like, wow, that's bad, that's badass. Because they're manipulating and turning its own graffiti echelon on its head. But this book is a really important book, because Henry said out of all the things he ever did, all the photography he ever did, and he captured the 80s, which is very important. But this book is remarkable. So I'd say to any of you guys, if you can get this book, I mean, it's, you know, you've got Gun Hill Road, which is some of the early graffiti that was really happening in New York at the time. And yes, it's really basic and primal, but it shows the social background to why these kids were doing it, as opposed to, we're doing it for art. No, they wasn't. They were doing it because they just want to get up and get seen. And they want their names to travel from one side of the city to the other. And I think that's kind of what changed with graffiti in the same way that symbolism. If I remove Coca-Cola from the Coca-Cola can, it's a Coca-Cola. So I've been given this image for years and years. It's a stripe with a red, white squiggle. That's it. It's Coca-Cola. Most of these things that we know now, beyond Joseph Reichwert's works, beyond his works, where graffiti would become, this barbarian from within would one day rule the art world. But it's even gone a step beyond that now, because it's now gone to symbolism in a whole other way. You can recognise certain people's work amongst your community. I can recognise certain art. I can recognise Mo 2, who by far from me is one of the best character painters of all time. But you recognise all this different work, a bit like you recognise people's sound within albums and music. And that's really important to me. But I think that the beautiful thing about this journey, and I think my first time going to New York, and the impact it made on me, it was kind of the same as when I went to Barcelona and I saw the amount of art in Barcelona as a city. We're way ahead, and even now, they've got a different government coming in, they're starting to change their way of thinking. It served a purpose for a while, and now they're getting oppressed again with it. I think we need to, as people, as individuals, to protect the art in this city, and this country for that matter. Because the people that are always offended by it are the people it's really less important to. They're the people that if I remove graffiti completely, they'll be scratching their heads thinking, something's wrong today. Something really feels different. Well, yeah, because we took this canvas and we wiped it clean as you asked. And now what the fuck do you have? You know, if I remove even tags on the train that move past them, it's what differentiates things from, well, is that graffiti, is that graffiti? It's still part of the same culture. Does your kid fall over when he walks? Oh, you go, yes, she does. And you pick it up and you learn something else. I was tagging, people like Drax were bombing the hell out of the city. You've got to learn ways of different things. I learned to paint whole pieces. I learned style and letter form in different ways. We all go on these different branches and these different things with the tree of art, I think. And I've looked at art in many ways, in the way that it kind of transferred into music. It was the same thing. I treat sound as colour. It's just the way that it is. Doing my first album, it was a piece for me. It wasn't a piece of music, it was a painting, because it's what I'd learned from graffiti. You have this idea, which is one-dimensional. It two-dimensionally goes onto a piece of paper. I then apply this graffiti 3D, which creates this 4D Escher, which creates this 5D thing going on. And that's for me what the power of graffiti is. It was the Escher of the art world. It was something which, arriving at that point, a lot of the early technology, we were going, well, why don't we get the letter form and we wrap it around a sphere in a computer, and we print it out, we then have the outline. Because as a graffiti writer, we only imitated art. Whether it was Van Gogh, whether it was Futura, we always imitated art, because that's what art does, it imitates. There is no real originality in art, really. Because the idea is, the brain will illuminate lilac on a pinprick, just on one side of the old brain inside, not to the visible eye. And as soon as they show them art and paintings and graffiti, it lit up again, just adjacent. On a pinhead, it would be in the same place. So people that have had trauma are very susceptible to art. Ah. Bingo. So it really allowed me to start thinking, this is why I am the way that I am, because I'm driven through tragedy, driven through all of these things. Sometimes we fall on the other side. You know what I mean? I went through that in the 90s, I went through some pretty bad patches. But old scars take a while to heal if you go back, and finding out where they come from and going forward, it allows me to really celebrate art and think, I was right. There was tangible evidence of why I am the way that I am as an artist. And why I do have a massive, massive protection thing going on with it. People sometimes misconstrue that with ego. It's not fucking ego, my friends, it's passion. Don't get it twisted. And I think that when you see early on, you become very resilient to that. You see people come up and you kind of know the agenda. There's a bigger battle going on, man. Do you know what I mean? And I think as soon as sometimes we project to other people, and we see ourselves in someone, and we sometimes see what we're not doing enough of ourselves. I used to fucking hate Mo too, man. I've got a great book from Mo. It says, from bitter rivalries to great friendships. Because we went through so much, because the 80s was about battling for us. It's about getting down, man. It's about battling, it's about taking out the other person. It was about having this culture that allowed us to be angry, but shouting and screaming in a whole other way. I want to be able to battle this guy, I'm going to pull a knife out. It's brilliant. Yeah, take me, baby. So it became the real form of a real heart. Now, surely the Greeks did have a chess, right? Because when they invented chess, that became a scholar's game, right? Instead of clubbing a fucker to death, they got a chessboard out. Let's do it. See who's clever. Yeah, I really appreciate the learning of what and the teaching, both of where that has brought me. And I think the limbic system is an ideal of understanding how the human brain works and how graffiti writers see the world. No one wore a baseball cap where I used to live. Now every fucker's got one because we're in Oxford Street. By my mind, it's like they're here, instead of behind, they're everywhere. It's become this world where it's this place that I'm thinking, great. We did all the repel. All of a sudden we're here. This is the society which we created. Not me, specifically, but people that are like-minded want to be in an environment like you order a custom menu, you order custom food. You can get whatever food you can get around Shorty's now. You can get what you want now. You were very limited before Wimpy. McDonald's. It's specific. So is aerosol cans. So is Montana. You know what I mean? We've become this custom-built society. So why are the politicians fighting us? Why aren't they putting enough of that camera money into the fund to enhance that? No, well, because it's not commercially suited and they're making money out of it. That's why. So it needs companies like Boxfest. It needs companies like Animated. There's all these different companies. And I can say it in the same breath, I'm allowed. I've been here 30 years. But these companies, when they first began, were of the ilk of understanding street culture. I always remember a very big debate with Ken Block from DC Shoes. You know, we're never going to sponsor somebody who's not a skater. They sold the company for 760 million because they realised you have to step outside the lifestyle. You know, when people don't fight away from the feet all the time, it's about lifestyle. And as soon as Ken got his head around that, it became, you know, a massive company. Because it was about how people essentially began as a brand and then we can move into different things. It's part of our lives. Graffiti is not different than, for me, getting up and walking the dog for me. You know, it's part of that situation. What I will say is, in the refinement of stuff, you know, we did a wall in New York, going back a year. We had a reunion, about 30 of us of Stash. Oh God, Stash, Wayne, Bio, Nicer, BG. So many writers that we all got together, just got together to just do this wall. And it's great because with graffiti you never forget, you never lose that with this culture, which is so beautiful because the way it's made up. And I think the way that, going back to the governments and going back to the people that make so much money from the speed cameras, and so much money for all these other things, if I take a piss, I'm getting fined. If my dog shits, I get fined. Where do you put this money, by the way? I just want to know. Because if I had my way, I'd have handball courts all around London designated to people that were in the area that can manage that. Like Sidmouth Road, for example, it's become its own grey area where somebody kind of manages it because he lives there and we whitewash the walls every 6 months and then somebody can paint and we all get down and we do that. Why are we doing that? Why aren't they caring for us? If they took enough of our money, why aren't they doing that for us? We need a place to escape. Going back to the point about the computers and everything else, if you remove graffiti from society and we take away street art, it's not going to be the other way. When you have your computers, what do you fucking have? A window to the world with no escape? I couldn't imagine that. What I can imagine is having an education system that needs to be looked at, because they're the cavemen now. Us barbarians grew up very quickly. We adapted as culture does. They're the barbarians now. They're the ones that are like, what are you doing? Spending all of this money with what? You put humps in there, you remove the humps, and you put a camera in, and then you close off the estate because your police cars can't get in there. How much money are you spending doing this? Why don't you design the fucking white place in the 70s? Design the place to be lived in properly. Employ those designers that are doing stuff. Employ those new architects, which they are doing to a certain degree. But when it comes to the arts, boy, are we suffering. So the referendum in Amsterdam, you know, it's changing a lot, and they were big supporters of the arts because they had a big influx of the origins of different people moving into that. And I think that in the early Amsterdam, when me and Vulcan took a trip there, looking for different art dealers to sell canvases before Lady Pink and all those guys, they were already going there. We were following in that whole thing, selling art on canvas. I've got no fear in Banksy selling something for 6 million quid and somebody else selling something for 20 million. I have no qualm in that at all. I think street culture is very important to see how far it's gone. If you can still paint, you can still cut your own. I think that's what it's part of. You've cut your teeth on the street. You're allowed to do that. Because street culture, I always looked at the street as the father is the corner and road and the graffiti battle and the breakdancing. And the mother is the art, it's the art, so that's part of that whole thing. So the street was my education, it's what I learned. And it's very, very important that in my own children, I've lost a few, one in particular. And it's very difficult as a father for a son to say, Dad, you're right. Because it's difficult for young kids growing up now, they have so much information, it's like a floodgate just coming at you. How do you navigate around that? It's important for me as an artist in general this was Sidmouth Road actually, yeah. It's very important for me as an artist to have free expression. Whether I want to do a cutting edge piece, whether I want to be in Mayfair and do a really, you know, I think we did Lost Tribes. I wanted to put information in people's heads about lost tribes, and how I feel that through the trail winds we've lost our culture, and how different people can wear different things. That's from Zambia, that's from North America, his headdress is from the poles. I enjoyed that because it challenged people's perceptions of what, how my forms of art would move forward. And I think, tried and tested, if you're a graffiti writer by default, I've always said this, that you can do any other form of art. You can make drum and bass music, you can make any other form of art. I've always felt that. It's only my opinion. It may not be right depending on where you're sitting. Because if we're sitting on a table, and the table's brown, the table looks brown to you the same way it looks brown to me, but it's got a few different shades on it. So, in my opinion, I've always felt that graffiti had a real bad deal, but for sometimes good reason to where it is now, because it's become stronger and more resilient, and you can't just, tuck it away, get it out of the way, and you remove that. It's part of our society, and we just have to accept it, and I think it's not something. It's what we do, whether you apply that to the computer program, whether I knit this like this, it's application. Culturally, outside the walls, and I mean outside the walls, as in here, on the street painting, it's something that will always give you that buzz. For me, that reminds me of when I smoked my first cigarette. I sometimes catch a smell of it sometimes. You know what I mean? When I'm behind the bike shed having my first snog. I remember that. I remember these things. And I think I remember these things. I remember my O-level, looking out of a window, painting an iron, a newspaper, an ashtray, looking at a pikey gypsy camera with Frankie Harrison. I remember that day. And when we did Saturn's Return, which is a documentary I did, which was at the height of my drug use, and I was in a real bad way, but in this really powerful Pandora's box place, which was, everything was coming out because of previous scars, and of course I wanted to atone for this. But when I walked into that playroom, that same classroom, the smell just comes straight back to me. And I started to remember what it was like being there, and also how small the classroom was, how tiny it looked, and how I just championed that place. Because when you're very, very young, we have these worlds where, when my daughter comes back, and she's 2 and a half, she comes back and she's got this crumpled thing in her bag, and it's alright, I take it out, I iron it, put it away and look at it, because that is the best art you could even imagine. In the same way that Matisse would be the same thing, childlike, whatever, I really respect that. It's only because I've gone through so much of these phases with art and street culture why I have this thing now with that. Because it's like fucking olives, I hated olives as a teenager, couldn't stand them. Olives, I was this kid in the basement going, what's he talking about? I'm fucking big, I am. Big fucking dominant. I have a lot to learn. And I think in the last 10 years of this culture, the benefits, if you like, of how important and how beautiful our environment can be. Even more so with, you look at Ayn and you look at all these wonderful guys that are just doing this, this Macintosh blew up into the world around us because we need this place to paint. We need these places to be able to do this. And I think we imitate art, right? Well, surely we imitate technology. We've got a screen with all this fascination. We can now bring that on the screen outside here. You couldn't have done this massive projector slide thing 20 years ago. Look at it there. I'm going to get a pencil and draw around it, remove the slide, and then paint it. Because technology has allowed us to really open it up. But we need to respect that. We need to respect that it is this machine that we need to put the soul into, as opposed to being determined by it. And I think that's really important. Probably the most single important thing for me is that I never lose faith of that. That's why I never wanted to program. I never want to engineer. Because if I did that, I would have 24,000 things never finished. I know that I have to do this and lay this here. And I always say to engineers, just stop a second. Close your eyes and come back over here. Don't look at the screen and imagine that you're painting the canvas. The arrangement, man. These are the colours, these are the sounds. I'm going to place them here. That's where they are.